I kept noticing the box of condoms in my grandfather's drawer reducing every week. When I finally checked the camera footage, the person in bed with him made me scream. My name is Sophie Miller, I'm 22, and I take care of my grandfather, Walter. He's the one who taught me how to ride a bike, how to make pancakes that don't burn, and how to stand my ground when people treat me like I'm small. For a while, it felt like the worst of life had already happened. My dad leaving, my mom working double shifts, me juggling college classes with pharmacy tech hours. Then I noticed something tiny, something that didn't fit the steady, simple rhythm of Grandpa's house. The box of condoms in his top drawer was shrinking. Every week, a few were missing. It made zero sense. He was 78. He joked that the only thing he dated now was the Sunday crossword. I didn't want to be the person who snoops, but worry has a way of turning your feet toward the drawers you swear you'll never open. I checked the medicine cabinet. I checked the laundry. And when I still couldn't explain it, I did the thing I never thought I'd do. I set up a small motion camera on the bookshelf in his bedroom, tucked between his old baseball trophies. He thought it was a new air freshener. He even sniffed it and said, lavender. The next weekend, after my shift, I grabbed a Coke from the fridge, sat on the living room rug, and opened the camera app. My heart hammered like it wanted out. I scrub-led through quiet nights, skipped forward past late news and snoring. Then, on Thursday night, the screen flashed from black and white night vision to movement. Grandpa walked in, a little unsteady, and sat on the edge of his bed. A second figure slipped in behind him, turned, and for a second the bedside lamp washed her face with warm light. It was Jenna. My best friend Jenna. The person in bed with him made me scream an ugly, shocked sound I didn't even recognize as mine. I dropped the phone so hard the case cracked, scrambled to press pause, then played it again, needing it to be wrong, begging it to be wrong. But there she was, Jenna, in his bed, one hand on his shoulder, the other reaching for the drawer where the box used to sit. She didn't hesitate. She knew exactly where it was. I couldn't breathe. All I could think was, why would she, why him, what is happening to my life? The video kept playing. Jenna laughing softly. Grandpa's face tight and hesitant. Jenna whispering something I couldn't hear, then placing her hand over the camera for a moment like she knew. When her hand moved, the angle shifted and I caught a slant of her smile, practiced and calm. Not surprised. Not guilty. Like this was normal. Like this was planned. I slapped the laptop shut, then opened it again because I needed to be sure. The screen replayed that same scene, Jenna pulling back the sheets, my grandfather looking lost, the drawer sliding open. All of it felt wrong and twisted, and my chest burned. The oldest person in my life and the closest friend in my life in the same bed. If you love true family drama stories, hit subscribe and ring the bell. You won't want to miss the next twist. I didn't sleep that night. I paced and chewed the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. Around dawn, I washed my face, pulled on a hoodie, and sat on the back steps to breathe the cold morning air. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jenna. Brunch today? I miss you. I stared at the screen. My hand shook. I typed, sure. 11 at Donnie's? Then I deleted it. Then I typed, we need to talk. Then deleted that. Finally, I put the phone face down so I wouldn't throw it at the fence. Grandpa shuffled into the kitchen in his robe, slippers whispering on the tile. Morning, Peach, he said, like the world hadn't shifted in the night. He poured coffee into the mug I made him for Father's Day, best almost dad, and looked at me over the rim. His hands shook, like always, age doing its patient work. You look like you fought a tornado. I watched him butter toast with slow, careful strokes. He asked me if I wanted eggs. He told me the neighbor's dog finally learned not to bark at the garbage truck. He was ordinary. He was himself. And I sat there wondering how much of that was true and how much of it was an act so I wouldn't see what was right in front of me. Grandpa, I said, and the word hurt on my tongue, are you okay? He looked up at me and smiled. I'm old. Sophomore old people spend half their day remembering where they put their glasses and the other half pretending they don't care. He wasn't going to tell me. He wasn't going to volunteer anything. I swallowed a tangle of questions and told him I'd pick up his prescription later. I kissed his temple because I always do. He smelled like Irish Spring and cinnamon toast. I almost cried right then. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed to hear Jenna's mouth form the lie before I showed her the truth. Donnie's Diner had sticky laminated menus and a jukebox that played Take It Easy whenever someone pumped a quarter. Jenna was late, as usual. When she swept in, she looked like she belonged on a magazine cover for effortless mornings, oversized sweater, glossy ponytail, those soft eyes that had gotten us free muffins 100 times. She hugged me, squeezing the air out of my lungs. "You okay?" she asked, too bright. "You look pale." "I'm fine," I said, and it came out flat as a sidewalk. "We ordered pancakes." She asked about work. I nodded at the right times and let her voice wash over me. She said she had a new volunteer shift at the senior center on Thursdays. My stomach nodded. Thursdays. Of course. Is that where you met him? I asked, too soft. At the senior center? She blinked. Who? My grandfather. I looked right at her. Walter Miller. Her face didn't crack. Not even a hairline fracture. She smiled like I had told a joke. Soph, I've known your grandpa since we were 12. We ate popsicles on his porch every summer. What are you talking about? I leaned in. Jenna, the camera. I know. For half a second, her eyes flicked fast, almost invisible. If I hadn't been looking for it, I would have missed it. Then she laughed. A camera? In his room? Wow. That's a lot, Sophie. Maybe you need sleep. I didn't blink. I saw you. She set her fork down with a little clink, then exhaled. When she spoke again, her voice gentled, like she was guiding a child across a street. Okay, let's say you did. Maybe what you saw isn't what you think you saw. The booth felt too small. The diner felt too bright. Then tell me what I saw. Jenna looked at the syrup bottle, then back at me. I've been checking on him at night. He gets confused. He told me he worries about falling asleep and not waking up. It scares him. Physical touch. It calms his heart, sophomore. I never wanted to upset you. I tasted metal. You used the condoms. She didn't flinch. Yes. Because I'm careful. Because I didn't want you to find something worse. Because I thought, if you ever did find out, you'd rather know I took precautions than think I was reckless with someone you loved. How could you do this? My voice cracked. With him. Because he's a person, she said softly. Not just your grandfather. A lonely person. He asked. He cried. I felt the room tilt like a boat. Was she telling the truth? Was any of this compassion? Or was this a script she wrote to look like a saint while she crossed every line? I stared at her. Did you ask me? Did you think about me? You're my best friend. I thought about him, she said. And yes, I thought about you. I thought about the way you work until your back hurts and you come home and collapse on the couch and whisper, "At least Grandpa is okay." I thought maybe I could help him be okay. I wanted to throw the syrup bottle. I wanted to crawl under the table. I wanted to run. I took a breath that felt like fire and said, "You will not see him again." Her jaw set. That's not your decision. He's my family. And he's an adult. We stared each other down until the jukebox switched songs and someone at the counter laughed, and the clatter of plates reminded me I was in a room full of strangers watching a bridge I loved burn. Here's what's going to happen, Jenna said, her voice barely above a whisper. You're going to take a beat. You're going to think about what he wants. If you share that video or blow this up, you won't be protecting him. You'll be humiliating him. She slid the check toward me. I'm not the enemy. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. I left cash on the table and walked out into the thin winter sun. The air bit my cheeks. I stood on the sidewalk and tried to breathe in a way that didn't hurt. People walked past with grocery bags and coffee cups and normal lives. I didn't feel like I had a life anymore. I felt like I was standing on a rug someone planned to yank. On the drive back, I thought of the way Grandpa had held my hand at my 8th grade graduation, telling me, when you don't know what to do the kind thing. I thought of what kindness looks like when it collides with betrayal. Sometimes kindness is not a soft thing. Sometimes it has a spine. I decided to get advice without exposing him. I drove to the senior center where Jenna said she volunteered and asked for Mrs. Richard, the director. She's a small woman with sharp eyes and sharper memory. She's known Grandpa for years. I told her I was worried about a friend taking advantage of someone I love and asked about boundaries for volunteers. Mrs. Richards sighed. We emphasize them every orientation. No loans. No romantic involvement. No gifts over $20, and if there's a question, you clear it with us. She tilted her head at me. If you're seeing something, you can tell me straight. I can't, I said, choosing each word like it might break. Not yet. But if a volunteer crossed a line, what would happen? We file a report, she said. We contact the family. She paused. And we protect the senior. Protect. The words settled in my ribs. Protect didn't have to mean shame. It could mean privacy. It could mean better care. It could mean honesty. When I got home, Grandpa was napping in his recliner, the sports channel murmuring. I watched his chest rise and fall. I stared at the lined skin of his hands, the wedding ring he still wore even though Grandma had been gone 10 years. He startled awake, blinked at me, smiled. Hey, Peach. Hey, did you get the prescription? I will, I said. In a bit. He cleared his throat, then tapped the arm of the recliner like he was working up to something. There's a charity dinner tonight. The veterans thing. Jenna said she could drive me if you're tired. The sound in my head wasn't thunder. It was a clean, definite click, like a lock tumbling. So he was going to see her. He was going to pick her. I'll take you, I said, calm and level. It'll be nice to get out. He hesitated. I don't want you to miss anything. I'm not. He smiled at the TV. He didn't look at me again. It hit me then that betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it looks like someone's staring just past your shoulder. I couldn't sit there. I grabbed my keys and told him I'd get his prescription and some groceries. Instead, I drove to Jenna's apartment. I told myself I wasn't going to do anything stupid. I told myself I just needed facts. Her building has a glass door with a buzzer that never worked. I slipped in behind a guy with a pizza and took the stairs 2 at a time. Jenna's door was ajar. Someone had wedged a sneaker between the frame and the jamb. Her laugh drifted into the hallway, soft and easy. I should have left. I should have turned around. Instead, I pushed the door open another inch and saw a quick slice of her living room. Shoes kicked off, a coat on the couch, a paper shopping bag stamped with the logo of a fancy men's store I couldn't afford to walk into. A voice drifted from the kitchen, male, warm, not my grandfather's. I recognized it a half-second too late. My Uncle Josh. My mother's brother. Married. Father of 2. My stomach fell through the floor. Jenna stepped out of the kitchen with 2 glasses of wine and froze when she saw me. Josh turned, the color draining from his face. He set the glass down like it weighed 100 pounds. I couldn't feel my hands. Are you kidding me? I heard my voice like it was coming from the end of a long hall. My grandfather wasn't enough? Jenna's eyes flashed fear or anger, I couldn't tell. Sophie, it's not what you think. Josh tried to smile and failed. Kiddo, let's all just. Don't kiddo me, I snapped. I swear. A phone buzzed on Jenna's counter. She glanced at it and swore under her breath. She grabbed her purse and pulled out a folded stack of papers, legal-sized, crisp. She clutched them to her chest like she'd been about to hide them. Something cold crawled up my back. What is that? I asked. She shook her head. None of your business. I stepped forward and snatched the papers before I could think. She lunged, but I was faster. I backed into the doorway and flattened the pages against the hall light. It was a draft. A draft of my grandfather's new will. The language was stiff and precise. Appointment of executor. Distribution of personal assets. Specific bequest to Ms. Jenna Hart. My name wasn't anywhere on the first page. It wasn't on the second. My hands shook so hard the pages rattled. Give those back, Jenna hissed, and I saw her mask slip for the first time, tight mouth, narrowed eyes. You have no right. He is not your gold mine, I said, voice low and shaking. Then maybe you should act like he's not your paycheck, she shot back, and the words landed like a slap. He's a man, Sophie. He gets to choose. I flinched. Josh ran a hand through his hair like he was about to beg the universe for a do-over. Sophie, listen, he said. This is adult stuff. Messy, yeah, but Adult? I choked on a laugh that wasn't funny. You're married, Josh. His eyes flicked to the floor. I never touched her, he said quickly, like he could plug a hole with the sentence. This is not. I looked down at the will again. On page 3, buried in a paragraph of legal gravel, I saw a line that knocked the breath from my lungs. Durable power of attorney, medical and financial matters, appointed to Ms. Jenna Hart. My vision tunneled. If this went through, Jenna wouldn't just be in his bed. She'd be in his bank, his hospital charts, his decisions. She would own the lock and the key. I folded the papers slowly, carefully, and slid them into my bag. Jenna stepped forward and grabbed my wrist, her nails biting. Stop, she said. You're making a mistake. So are you, I said, jerking free. Josh raised both palms like he could stop a train with air. Everyone calmed down. I backed into the hall, heart exploding against my ribs. If you go near him tonight, I said to Jenna, I will make sure the senior center, your job, and your church know exactly who you are. She didn't even blink. Do it, she said. Humiliate him in the process. See who that hurts most. For a second, the quiet was louder than any shouting. I could hear the hum of the hallway light, the thud of someone's bass 2 floors down, my own breathing like waves in my ears. I turned and ran. On the front steps, I doubled over, elbows on my knees, and gulped air until the world stopped spinning. I wiped my face with my sleeve and felt something like steel slide into place inside me. This wasn't just about anger now. It was about protection, and the kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that shows up with paperwork, with witnesses, with a plan. I drove straight to Mrs. Richards' office. I didn't make up a story this time. I told her everything I could without showing the video, names and all. She listened, mouth a hard line, pencil tapping. When I finished, she said, we'll handle the volunteer side. Today. Then she leaned in. You call his doctor and ask for a cognitive assessment. If there's any sign that he's being unduly influenced, we can put a hold on changes like this. You're not alone, Sophie. Not alone. I didn't know I needed those words until they loosened something tight in my throat. I nodded, wrote down the steps she gave me, and promised to bring whatever documents I had. When I got home, I moved through the house like a quiet wind. I opened Grandpa's desk and pulled out the old accordion folder where he kept his important papers, pension letters, insurance, a copy of his current will, the one he'd made 3 years after Grandma died. He had left the house to my mom and me, with some savings set aside for my schooling and his church's food pantry. He had signed it in front of Pastor Mike and Mrs. Richard herself. I took a photo of each page and emailed them to myself and, on impulse, to an attorney my coworker once used for her dad. I heard the front door open. Soph, Grandpa called. You here? In the study, I said, tucking the folder back exactly where I found it. He shuffled in, rubbing his hands together like he'd been outside. He smiled at me, but his eyes were watery. You okay, Peach? I looked at him, really looked, and my anger slid sideways into something softer and more complicated. Underneath the mess, I could still see the man who tied my endless shoelaces and watched rom-coms with me when I had the flu. I could see the loneliness he would never say out loud. Hurt people do not stop being people. I'm fine, I said. I thought we could go to that dinner together. I'll wear that blue dress you like. His smile reached his eyes this time. I'd like that very much. Good. I stepped closer. And Grandpa? Yes. If anyone ever tells you that you have to choose between them and me, choose yourself. Choose what keeps you safe. He frowned, confused. I always choose you, he said, like it was obvious. Maybe he believed it. Maybe the truth was more slippery. Maybe both were true. We left at 6. The sky was a sheet of low-gray cloud, the kind that promises snow and delivers cold rain instead. I held his arm on the steps, and he patted my hand. In the car, he hummed along to a station that played old Sinatra. He looked small in the passenger seat, wrapped in his Goodwill coat. At the Veterans Hall, I helped him out of the car and up the ramp. People waved and called his name. He lit up the way he always does around people who remember who he used to be. We found our table with a little sign that said Walter Miller Donor. I swallowed a lump of pride and anger and love. The evening started with coffee and too sweet tea and a slideshow of old photos. For a little while, I let myself feel normal. Then Jenna walked in through the side door. She didn't look around. She didn't hesitate. She headed straight for the head table, where the organizer stood with a stack of envelopes, and slid something into his hand. He glanced down, then up at her, then over the crowd. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and said something I couldn't hear. The organizer stepped to the microphone. He tapped it once and smiled. "Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, we have a special announcement and a gift to honor one of our most loyal supporters." I felt my spine turn to ice. Jenna didn't look at me. She stood off to the side, perfectly still, like a statue that knew it was being admired. "Tonight," the organizer said, voice rich with ceremony, "we'd also like to recognize a new sustaining donor who has requested to make her contribution in honor of Walter Miller, a man who..." The lights dimmed, and the slideshow cut to a new image. My grandfather in his uniform, young and fierce and beautiful. Then another, him and Grandma on their wedding day. The crowd oohed. A murmur of warm surprise lifted around the room. I stared at Jenna's profile and knew what was inside that envelope, proof she was good for him, a story as neat as a bow on a coffin. "Ladies and gentlemen," the organizer said, stretching his arm toward the side door as it swung wider, "please welcome our new benefactor, Ms. Jenna Hart." Applause rose like a wave and broke over her. She smiled, that practiced, calm smile. Then she turned and walked past the podium, past the organizer, straight toward our table, toward my grandfather, holding a small navy blue folder with a gold seal. "Walter," she said, loud enough for the tables nearby to hear, "I brought something for you to sign before the program starts, just like we discussed." Grandpa blinked, confused, then pleased, reaching out a trembling hand. And that was the moment I stood up, my chair scraping the floor, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. I stepped between Jenna and my grandfather and put my hand on the folder. "Not tonight," I said, steady and clear, loud enough for the microphone to catch. "You're not signing anything tonight." Jenna's eyes flashed. The organizer leaned in, baffled. "Is there a problem?" The room went quiet, heads turning like sunflowers to light. I opened the folder. The document inside wasn't a donation form. It was the durable power of attorney, with a blank line waiting for Walter Miller's signature. What do you think will happen next? Drop your guesses in the comments. The entire hall went silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the microphone and the distant clinking of silverware. Dozens of faces turned toward me, some curious, some confused. Jenna froze mid-smile, the navy blue folder still in her hand. Grandpa blinked between us, his eyes wide and watery. "Not tonight," I repeated, firmer this time. "He's not signing anything tonight." Jenna's expression flickered, shock first, then something darker. The kind of calm people wear when they've been caught but haven't decided whether to lie or fight. "Sophie," she said softly, "this isn't what you think." "It never is it?" I snapped, and the microphone picked up every word. "You shouldn't be doing this here. Not in front of everyone." The organizer, Mr. Benson, a retired colonel who'd known Grandpa for decades, stepped closer, his brow furrowing. "Is everything all right, Walter?" Grandpa looked lost. I think so," he stammered. "Jenna just wanted me to sign." "Sir," I cut in gently, lowering my tone. "You don't need to sign anything tonight. Let's sit down and talk, okay?" Mr. Benson reached for the folder. "Let me see that." Jenna hesitated. For a heartbeat, she considered keeping it, but every eye in the room was on her now. Slowly, she handed it over. He flipped through the pages. His frown deepened. Then he looked up at her, disbelief etched on his face. "This isn't a donation form. This is a legal transfer." A murmur swept the hall like a gust of wind through leaves. People whispered. Heads turned. Cameras flashed from nearby tables. Jenna's mask cracked. Her voice sharpened. "This was a private matter. He asked me to bring it." Mr. Benson shook his head. "Then it should have gone through his attorney, not a dinner party." I felt my pulse steady for the first time that night. The truth was peeking through her polished lies. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to True Revenge Stories for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. Grandpa's hands trembled. Jenna, why would you? She reached for him. Walter, please. You said you wanted me to handle things if anything happened. Remember? His gaze clouded, confusion mixing with shame. I don't remember saying it needed to be now. I stepped between them. Because you didn't. The tension snapped. Jenna's composure shattered completely. You're manipulating him, she spat at me. You don't care about him, you just want his money. Gasps echoed around the hall. My stomach twisted, but I didn't flinch. Money? I said quietly. You mean the same money you've been writing yourself checks from? I saw the bank statements. That wasn't true, not yet. But I'd noticed small withdrawals from Grandpa's account earlier that week and made a mental note to check. I wasn't lying, just speeding up the truth. Jenna froze. Her jaw tightened. You thought no one would notice, I continued, my voice trembling, but loud enough for everyone to hear. You used him. You used me. You planned to take control of everything, didn't you? The room erupted, whispers, murmurs, disbelief. Someone shouted, "Is that true?" Another said, "Call the police." Mr. Benson stepped forward. Miss Hart, I think you should leave. Jenna's face went pale. She turned to Grandpa, her eyes desperate now. Walter, please tell her I was helping you. Grandpa looked at her for a long, fragile second. His lips trembled. Then he looked at me, and the words came out barely above a whisper. I don't know what's happening. I put a hand on his shoulder. It's okay, Grandpa. I do. Jenna's eyes filled with tears, real or rehearsed, I couldn't tell. She backed away, shaking her head, whispering, You'll regret this, Sophie. You'll regret all of it. Then she turned and walked out, heels clacking against the polished floor. The door slammed behind her. The silence she left behind felt heavy. Mr. Benson patted Grandpa's arm. You've got good people watching out for you, Walter. Don't sign anything until you talk to a lawyer. Grandpa nodded weakly. Yes, sir. The rest of the evening blurred. People avoided eye contact, unsure whether to clap for the next speaker or call it a night. I helped Grandpa back to the car, my hand steadying his trembling one. He didn't speak the whole ride home. When we got inside, he sat in his recliner and stared at the floor for a long time. Finally, he said, She was kind to me, sophomore. After your grandma died, people stopped calling. She'd bring soup. Listen to my stories. Made me feel seen again. Tears burned behind my eyes. I know, I whispered. That's why it hurts. He looked up, eyes glistening. Did I do something terrible? No, I said softly. She did. He nodded slowly, but I could see the guilt sinking into him anyway. The loneliness too. That night, after he went to bed, I sat in the kitchen staring at the flickering light above the stove. I should have felt victorious. But I didn't. It didn't feel like revenge, it felt like a wound that bled in slow motion. Still, I wasn't done. Jenna might have walked out, but I knew she wasn't finished. People like her don't disappear, they regroup. The next morning, the proof arrived. A thick white envelope sat on the porch, sealed neatly. My name on the front, written in Jenna's perfect cursive. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were 3 photographs. The first, Grandpa and Jenna at dinner, holding hands. The second, a blurred image of me yelling at her in the diner, mid-tier. The third, a still from my own camera footage, Jenna half naked in Grandpa's room, his hand over hers. And a note. You think you're protecting him? Wait till the world sees what you filmed. Let's see who they think betrayed him then. I felt the blood drain from my face. She had access to my files. The footage was in my private folder, password protected. The only way she could have gotten it was if she'd installed something on Grandpa's laptop, or on mine. I ran upstairs and opened my computer. The camera app was open, recording again. A chill ran down my spine. She'd planted remote access software. Every word, every click, she could see. I yanked the Wi-Fi cable out of the wall. My reflection on the black screen looked like a stranger. For a moment, I wanted to give up. Let the secret rot and fade. But then I remembered my grandfather's trembling voice, asking if he'd done something terrible. The answer was no. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite that story. By noon, I was at the police station. The officer listened, scribbling notes. You have the footage? He asked. Yes, I said. And she's blackmailing me with it. He sighed. We'll need to take the laptop for evidence. If what you're saying checks out, this could fall under exploitation and digital harassment. Exploitation. The word made my skin crawl. I handed over the device. He gave me a case number. When I left the station, I felt lighter and heavier all at once. Like I'd handed off a burden that kept the bruises. That evening, Grandpa asked where my laptop was. I told him the truth. He nodded slowly. Do you think they'll stop her? I don't know, I said. But I think she just made her last move. Because if the police didn't stop her, I would. Do you believe love can survive betrayal like this? Comment yes or no below. 2 days later, Jenna's face was everywhere. Not on the news, on the community Facebook page, the church bulletin, the senior center forum. Word had spread faster than I expected. People whispered about the volunteer who took advantage of an old man. Her picture was shared, her name dragged. But I didn't start it. Mrs. Richard did. When the police called her for verification, she'd put 2 and 2 together. The moment she learned Jenna was under investigation, she made it her mission to warn every senior center in town. She didn't use the footage. She didn't have to. Reputation burns faster than video. That night, I made hot chocolate for Grandpa and turned on his favorite old Western. He didn't ask about Jenna. He didn't have to. The way he leaned his head back, tired but peaceful, told me he already knew. Halfway through the movie, the phone rang. I checked the caller ID, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then curiosity won. Sophie, Jenna's voice said, raw and low, you think you've won, but you don't understand what you've done. He's not who you think he is. Ask him about the night your father left. I froze. My fingers went numb around the phone. What did she mean? My father? Grandpa? Before I could think, Grandpa's voice came from the recliner. Who is that? I turned. He was looking at me, eyes soft but searching. No one, I said. Just a wrong number. He nodded slowly. You look pale, Peach. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, everything's fine. But it wasn't. Jenna's words echoed in my head. Ask him about the night your father left. My heart thudded so hard it hurt. Could she be lying again? Or did she just open a door I didn't know existed? I stared at Grandpa as he drifted off to sleep, the flickering TV light casting shadows on his face. If she was telling the truth, then this story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about secrets that went deeper than I ever imagined. And I was about to find out how deep. Sleep wouldn't come that night. Every time I closed my eyes, Jenna's voice echoed in my head like a curse. Ask him about the night your father left. That sentence was poison. For as long as I could remember, Grandpa had been the good one. The stable one. The man who stepped in when my dad vanished without warning. Mom never told me much about it, just that my father packed his bags one cold January night, left a note on the table, and never came back. The note said, "Don't look for me." No one ever explained why. But now Jenna, the same woman who had nearly tricked my grandfather into signing away his life, was claiming that Grandpa knew something about that night. I tried to tell myself she was lying. She had every reason to twist the knife one last time. But something about her voice, it wasn't her usual smug tone. It was quieter, almost broken. Like she knew she was already ruined, but still wanted to set something on fire before she disappeared. By morning, I decided I'd find the truth myself. Grandpa was still asleep, his soft snore echoing through the house. I went to the attic, the one place that smelled like dust and memories. Boxes stacked high, some marked Walter, Army, some Martha, Memories. And one box, unmarked, shoved far in the back. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside were old envelopes, photographs, and a single manila folder with my father's name on it, Michael Miller. My throat tightened. I flipped it open. Letters. Dozens of them. Most unopened. All addressed to Grandpa. And the first one, yellowed with age, read, Dad, I know you'll never forgive me, but I can't stay here anymore. She said she's pregnant. You'll hate me when you find out who it is. Please tell Mom I'm sorry. Mike. I froze. My heart started pounding so hard that the letters in front of me blurred. She said she's pregnant. Who is she? And why did Grandpa keep this hidden all these years? I grabbed the next letter, then the next, fragments of guilt, regret, fear. My father had written them from different towns: Ohio, Michigan, Arizona. Each one sounded more desperate. Until the last one. Dad. I thought she lost it. The baby. But she didn't. She said she'll tell everyone the truth if I don't come back. You said you'd take care of it. I'm trusting you to do the right thing. Please. Mike. The words blurred again, but this time because tears filled my eyes. Take care of it? What had Grandpa done? Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to True Revenge Stories for more shocking tales of betrayal and revenge. I heard movement downstairs, the sound of Grandpa's slippers dragging across the kitchen floor. My pulse spiked. I stuffed the letters back into the box, carried it down, and placed it on the table. Morning, Peach, he said with a tired smile. Morning, I replied quietly. We need to talk. He frowned. About what? I pushed the box toward him. About Dad. His hands hesitated midair. He looked at the box like it was a ghost. Where did you find that? The attic. I read them, Grandpa. I know he didn't just leave. He wrote to you. He begged you for help. His eyes darkened. Sophie, you shouldn't have read those. Then tell me why you kept them hidden. He exhaled slowly, sinking into a chair. Because some truths don't heal. They just rot. I crossed my arms. Tell me anyway. For a long moment, the only sound was the clock ticking above the fridge. Then he spoke, voice trembling. Your father wasn't a bad man. Just weak. He fell in love with someone he shouldn't have. Who? He stared at me, lips pressed tight. She was already married. To someone dangerous. A man with friends in places you don't want to imagine. I frowned. So Dad left to protect her? No, Grandpa said quietly. He left because she lied. She said she was pregnant, but the baby wasn't his. She used him to get out. When her husband found out, your father became the target. I did what I could to protect him. I swallowed hard. You said you'd take care of it. What did you mean? He looked down at his hands, old, wrinkled, shaking slightly. I called someone. A friend from my army days. He helped Michael disappear. New name. New life. My stomach dropped. You're saying my dad's alive? He didn't answer. Grandpa? He looked at me, eyes wet. I don't know. I never heard from him again. Maybe he made it. Maybe he didn't. The friend who helped me died 10 years ago. I felt dizzy. Alive or dead, he'd been out there. All this time. And Grandpa had chosen silence over truth. You should have told me, I whispered. I wanted to, he said, voice cracking. But every time I looked at you, I saw him. And I couldn't risk bringing. The next morning, I couldn't look at Grandpa the same. I made him breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee, but my hands trembled so badly I dropped the butter knife twice. He didn't notice. He was humming some old tune from the 60s, tapping his spoon against the mug like everything was normal. But I couldn't shake Jenna's voice. Ask him about the night your father left. Those words sat in my head like a ticking bomb. I wanted to ignore them, pretend she was just trying to mess with me. But something inside me, some small, stubborn part, refused to let it go. Because deep down, I knew something was off about that night. Dad had packed his bags while I was at a friend's house. When I came home, his car was gone, and Mom was crying at the kitchen table. Grandpa moved in 2 days later. He said Dad couldn't handle being a man. We never talked about it again. But now, I needed answers. Grandpa, I said, trying to sound casual, can I ask you something? He smiled, pouring syrup on his toast. You just did. I mean a real question. About Dad. His hand froze. The syrup bottle hung midair. What about him? Why did he leave? He set the bottle down slowly. The lightness in the room disappeared. His eyes went to the window, far away, like the past was something he could still see out there if he stared long enough. Your father, he said after a long pause, wasn't built for responsibility. He didn't want to take care of anyone but himself. That's not an answer. His jaw tightened. He walked out on you and your mother. That's all there is to it. But his voice was too sharp. Too quick. Like he'd practiced it. Grandpa, I said softly, Jenna called me last night. His head whipped around. What? She said you're not who I think you are. For a split second, just one, something flickered across his face. Guilt. Fear. Then it vanished. She's trying to poison you against me, he said. That girl has lost her mind. Then tell me what really happened, I said, leaning forward. Please. He stood up, pushing the chair back. I don't want to talk about this. Then I'll find out myself. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said it. He stared at me, shocked, then sighed like he'd aged 10 years in a minute. Sophie, he said quietly, some things are better left buried. Maybe for you, I said. But not for me. I left the house before he could answer. I drove aimlessly for an hour before ending up at my mom's house. She was folding laundry in the living room when I walked in. The smell of lemon cleaner and coffee filled the air. She looked up, surprised. Sophie? You look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have. She frowned. What's going on? I hesitated. Mom, I need to know the truth about Dad. About the night he left. The color drained from her face. She sat down slowly, like her knees had given up. Why now? She whispered. Because someone told me Grandpa's hiding something. Her eyes filled instantly. Oh, Sophie, please don't go down this road. Then tell me the truth, I said. What happened? She pressed her hand to her mouth. For a second, I thought she wouldn't speak. Then her voice came out thin and shaking. Your father didn't leave, Sophie. He was kicked out. By who? She swallowed hard. Your grandfather. The air felt thick. What? They got into a fight that night, she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. Your father was struggling, money, work, drinking. But he loved you. He wanted to stay. Then your grandfather showed up, and everything exploded. I was in the kitchen when I heard shouting, then a crash. When I ran in, your father was bleeding from the lip, and your grandpa was holding a wrench. I froze. What happened next? He told your father if he ever came near you again, he'd make sure he didn't walk away next time. My heart thudded in my chest. So, Dad didn't abandon me. She shook her head, sobbing. He left because he was scared. He called me once, months later, but your grandpa threatened him again. Said he'd ruin him if he came back. I felt like the room was spinning. Everything I believed about my life, about who the villain was, flipped upside down. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared too, she whispered. Your grandpa took care of us after that. Paid the bills. I thought I was protecting you. I stood up, pacing, shaking my head. All this time, I thought he was the hero. The man who stepped in when Dad walked out. Mom's voice cracked. He did take care of us, Sophie. He just took it too far. He couldn't stand to lose control. The betrayal burned hotter than anything Jenna had done. I thought Grandpa's sin was weakness. Turns out, it was power. That night, I didn't go home. I sat in my car outside a 24-hour diner, rain streaking the windshield, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately. Another part wanted to call Dad, if he was even still alive. I scrolled through Facebook, typing his name in the search bar. Dozens of results. Then one profile picture made my breath hitch. It was him. Older, grayer, but unmistakably my father. I clicked on his profile. The last post was from 2 months ago, starting over again at 50. God still got me. There was a number in his bio. A construction company in Ohio. My hands shook as I dialed. A man's voice answered. Hello. I froze. Dad. Silence. Then Sophie. I burst into tears. For the first time in 15 years, I heard his voice. We talked for 2 hours about Mom, life, and everything in between. When I told him what Mom had said, the line went quiet for a long time. I didn't want you to hate her, he said finally. Or him. But yeah, it's true. Your grandpa made sure I stayed gone. He sighed. I forgave him a long time ago, sophomore. But I knew someday you'd find out. I clenched the phone. He doesn't deserve forgiveness. Maybe not, Dad said softly. But you do. Don't let hate take what's left of you. Before we hung up, he said something that stuck with me. People like your grandpa build cages out of love. They tell themselves it's protection, but it's just fear with good manners. When I ended the call, I sat there for a long time, crying into my steering wheel. And that's when I saw it. Through the foggy glass of my windshield, a figure standing across the street. Under a flickering streetlight. Umbrella tilted. Jenna. She was watching me. She smiled slow, cold, and mouthed something. Told you. Then she turned and disappeared into the rain. By the time I got home, my chest was tight with fury. Grandpa was asleep in his recliner, TV flickering on his face. For a moment, I just stood there, watching him. The man I thought was my protector now looked like a stranger wearing his skin. I walked over, shut off the TV, and whispered, "Tomorrow, you're going to tell me everything. No more lies." He stirred, but didn't wake. I climbed the stairs, heart pounding. In the hallway, I noticed something strange. His bedroom door was open. The drawer where the condoms used to be? Empty again. The same camera I'd hidden there was gone. I stepped closer, dread crawling up my spine. The night light flickered. There, on the bed, was a folded piece of paper. I picked it up. It was my own handwriting. The words from my police statement. At the bottom, someone had written in red ink, "If you tell another lie, I'll make sure the truth destroys you first." The handwriting wasn't Jenna's. It was his. My grandfather's. What do you think will happen next? Will Sophie expose her grandfather or fall into the trap he's setting for her? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed, knees pulled to my chest, staring at that piece of paper until the ink started to blur from my tears. The red handwriting was shaky, but unmistakable. It was Grandpa's. Every loop and curve matched the way he used to sign birthday cards. "Love, Grandpa Walt." Except this time, it ended with a threat. I read the words over and over again. "If you tell another lie, I'll make sure the truth destroys you first." What truth? What else was he hiding? I thought about Jenna's call, about my mom's confession, about my dad's broken voice on the phone. It was all tangled together now, a story that no longer made sense. And deep down, I knew one thing. The man downstairs, the one sleeping peacefully in his recliner, wasn't the same man who taught me how to ride a bike. He was a stranger, and that stranger had just declared war. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. For a second, I hoped it had all been a nightmare. But when I walked into the kitchen, Grandpa was already there, standing by the counter, pouring 2 mugs like nothing had happened. "Morning, Peach," he said softly, sliding a cup toward me. "You didn't come down for dinner last night." I hesitated before sitting. I wasn't hungry. He smiled faintly. "You've always been like your mother. When something's wrong, you starve instead of scream." The words felt pointed, like a quiet warning wrapped in a compliment. I forced a sip of coffee, my hand trembling. "Someone's been in your room," I said, watching his reaction. He didn't blink. "Oh? Who?" "The camera's gone. And you left me a note." He set his cup down gently, meeting my eyes. "If I wanted to leave you a note, Sophie, you'd know it." I pulled the paper from my pocket and slid it across the table. "Then what's this?" He studied it for a long time. His face didn't move, but something behind his eyes shifted. Then, slowly, he smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Someone's playing games with you," he said calmly. "You sure it's not that little friend of yours?" I clenched my fists. "Jenna doesn't have access to the house anymore." "Doesn't she?" he asked. "She knew where I keep the spare key." "You didn't change it." That caught me off guard. I hadn't thought of that. He leaned back in his chair. "You're young, Sophie. You see monsters everywhere, but never check the mirrors first." I stood up abruptly. "You're lying." He looked up, unbothered. "And you're scared. That's what makes people dangerous." The way he said it, so measured, so deliberate, sent a chill through me. This wasn't confusion. It was control. He wasn't losing his mind. He was playing with mine. Later that day, I went to the police station to follow up on my case. Officer Reed met me in the lobby, his face serious. "We've looked into the footage," he said. "There's a problem." My stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "The files you submitted have been tampered with," he said. Parts of the video were deleted and replaced with older footage. Someone wanted it to look like a setup. My voice caught. "You mean they got into evidence?" He shook his head. "Not evidence. The source drive. Whoever did this had access to your home before you turned it in." The air left my lungs. "So they broke in?" "Or," he said carefully, "you live with them." The implication hit hard. Are you saying my grandfather? I'm saying, he interrupted. If he knew about the camera, he could have copied the files and edited them. We can't use this as proof until we confirm authenticity. I stared at the desk, dizzy. So she gets away with it? Not exactly. We're still investigating Ms. Hart for harassment and attempted coercion. But this complicates things. When I left the station, the sun was setting. The world looked normal, but nothing felt safe anymore. That evening, as I drove home, I passed Jenna's apartment complex. The windows were dark except one. Her living room light was on. A shadow moved across the blinds. I don't know what came over me, but I parked the car and walked toward the building. The buzzer was broken, just like before. I slipped inside and climbed the stairs. Her door was open again. Jenna. I called softly. No answer. I stepped in. The air smelled faintly of bleach and perfume. The apartment was spotless, too spotless. The furniture was gone. So were the clothes. Only a single envelope sat on the kitchen counter, with my name written across it. My heart thudded as I opened it. Inside was a small USB drive and a note. He's lying. Play this when you're alone. I slipped it into my pocket and hurried out. At home, Grandpa was asleep again. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I locked my door, turned off the lights, and plugged the USB into my laptop. A single video file appeared, thursdaynight.mov. I pressed play. At first, it was just static. Then the image cleared. The angle was from my camera. The one I'd hidden in Grandpa's room. But this wasn't the same footage I'd seen before. This one started earlier. Jenna entered the room, nervous, looking over her shoulder. She wasn't smiling this time. She sat on the edge of the bed and said, "Walter, we shouldn't do this anymore." His voice came from off-screen. Calm. Measured. "You'll do what I tell you." She shook her head. "You said this was just comfort. You said." He stepped into view. His expression wasn't kind. It was cold. "You're going to sign what I wrote. And then you'll keep your mouth shut about everything." "I never wanted your money," she said, voice trembling. "You told me you'd help me with rent. That's all I wanted." He moved closer, grip tightening on her arm. "You think you get to decide that?" Then his voice dropped low, almost a growl. "You remind me of my son. Always testing me. Always thinking you're smarter." The camera shook slightly, like it had been nudged. I said stop, she pleaded. He leaned in, whispering something too soft to hear. Then she flinched. The screen cut to black. I sat frozen, heart pounding in my throat. I rewound the video. Played it again. It was real. Grandpa wasn't the victim. He was the predator. And Jenna had been telling the truth. I covered my mouth, tears spilling down. The man I'd defended, protected, loved, had manipulated both of us. What would you do if you were in Sophie's shoes? Let me know in the comments. I took a shaky breath, staring at the laptop screen. If I turned this over to the police, Grandpa would be arrested. If I didn't, he'd destroy everything: Jenna, my dad, me. But then I saw something. A detail I'd missed before. At the very end of the footage, just before the blackout, a reflection in the mirror. Someone else was in the room. Someone filming with a second camera. The outline looked familiar. Too familiar. It wasn't me. It wasn't Jenna. It was Mom. I slammed the laptop shut, shaking. Why was she there? What had she seen? Had she known all along what Grandpa was doing and stayed quiet? A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned. Grandpa stood in the doorway, eyes shadowed in the dim light. "I told you not to go digging," he said softly. My voice barely worked. You knew." He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "I knew your mother wouldn't keep her mouth shut forever. That's why I handled it myself." My blood turned to ice. Handled what? He smiled faintly. People who betray family. He reached behind his back. I didn't see what he was holding, not at first, until the dim light caught the edge of a wrench. The same one Mom said he'd used years ago. That was the moment I realized history was about to repeat itself, unless I stopped him first. I took a step back toward the window. My heart thundered in my ears. He tilted his head, voice calm. "You could have just left it alone, Peach." I swallowed hard. "I'm not your Peach anymore." And then I ran. The moment I bolted from my room, the entire house seemed to come alive, floorboards groaning, the old walls whispering every footstep. My breath came fast, the air thick with panic and dust. Behind me, Grandpa's slow, deliberate footsteps echoed down the hallway. "Sophie," he called softly, like we were playing hide-and-seek. "You don't have to make this ugly." His voice, calm, polite, was somehow more terrifying than if he'd screamed. I sprinted down the stairs, nearly tripping over the last step, and grabbed my car keys from the counter. My fingers shook so hard they slipped. I heard him behind me, not running, just approaching. Like he knew I wouldn't get far. "Don't do this," he said. "You're going to regret what happens next." I turned, heart hammering. The sight of the wrench glinting in his hand froze my blood. "Stay away from me," I said, backing toward the door. He sighed. "You think you're protecting people by digging up the past. But the past protects you. You just don't see it yet." "Protects me from what?" I demanded. He stepped into the dim light of the hallway, his face pale and hollow. "From the truth, Sophie. From what really happened to your father." I hesitated, just long enough for him to move. He lunged forward, wrench raised. I screamed and threw the nearest thing I could find, the coffee mug he'd left on the counter. It shattered against the wall beside him. He flinched, and I bolted out the front door. Rain hit my face like cold needles as I sprinted to the car, fumbling for the door handle. The keys slipped again. Behind me, the porch light flicked on. His silhouette filled the doorway. I jumped in, slammed the door, and locked it. The engine roared to life, tires screeching on wet pavement as I tore down the street. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked like someone else, wild eyes, wet hair plastered to my face, fear carved into every line. I drove with no destination, just away. It wasn't until I hit the edge of town that I stopped near a small 24-hour diner with flickering neon lights. The same diner where I'd once confronted Jenna. I parked under the sign, hands still trembling on the steering wheel. Every instinct screamed run farther, but something told me to stay. Because now I knew Jenna hadn't been the enemy. She was the warning I ignored. I needed her help. Inside, the diner smelled like burnt coffee and old rain. A single waitress cleaned a booth near the window. She looked up, surprised to see anyone at this hour. "Hey, sweetie," she said gently. "You look like you've been through hell." "Something like that," I muttered. "Do you know where Jenna Hart went?" "She used to live over at Willow Creek Apartments." The waitress frowned. "Haven't seen her in a while. Cops were at her place a few nights ago, though. She moved out same day. Didn't leave a forwarding address." "Do you know where she worked?" She thought for a second. "She did shifts at that senior center, right? Maybe try there." I nodded numbly and left a tip I couldn't afford. The senior center was closed for the night, but the back gate wasn't locked. I parked behind the building and crept toward the office window. Inside, faint light flickered from a computer screen. Through the glass, I saw Mrs. Richard, the director, typing something, her face illuminated by the pale glow. I tapped the window lightly. She jumped, then opened the door when she saw me. "Sophie," she whispered. "What on earth are you doing here?" I stepped inside, dripping water onto the tile. "It's my grandfather. He's dangerous. He's been lying about everything." Her face tightened. "Come in, sit down. Start from the beginning." I told her everything, the video, the USB, the threat, the wrench. By the time I finished, her hands were trembling. "Sweetheart," she said, "you need to go to the police right now." "I did," I said. "They don't believe me. The footage was tampered with." "Then we'll get new footage," she said, standing abruptly. "He's supposed to be at the veterans' breakfast tomorrow. If he shows up, we'll have cameras there." I blinked. "You think he'll go?" She nodded grimly. "He never misses a chance to play hero." Her words hit hard. That was exactly who he'd always pretended to be, the savior, the steady hand. But saviors who hide monsters in their hearts are the most dangerous kind. "Mrs. Richard," I said quietly, "there's something else. My mom might be involved." She froze. "Involved how?" I told her about the reflection in the mirror. The outline. The timing. She sank back into her chair, pressing her temples. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I remember your mother from years ago. She worked here part-time after your grandmother passed. She had access to the staff cameras. My stomach turned. So she could have filmed that second angle. She could have, Mrs. Richards said softly. Or, he made her. The idea made me nauseous. What if, I said slowly, he's been using her too? Mrs. Richard looked up at me, eyes heavy with pity. Then you're not just fighting a liar, Sophie. You're fighting a man who's rewritten everyone's story. The next morning came faster than I wanted. Gray sky, light rain, and a chill that crept into my bones. I waited outside the Veterans Hall in my car, heart pounding. Across the street, Mrs. Richard had set up a small camera disguised as a donation box. 2 officers in plain clothes waited inside, pretending to be volunteers. If he showed up, if he tried to charm or manipulate someone again, they'd catch him. At 8:47 a.m., his car pulled into the parking lot. He stepped out, dressed neatly in his old brown jacket, like the proud grandfather everyone loved. But I knew better. He walked up the ramp, waving to the other veterans, smiling that same calm smile that used to comfort me. And then he looked across the street directly at me. Our eyes met. He smiled wider. Then he pointed at the hall door, mouthing something. You shouldn't have brought them. Before I could process what that meant, the hall lights flickered, then went out completely. A scream erupted inside. People started rushing out, confusion turning to chaos. Smoke poured through the open door. I ran toward the building, ignoring the officers shouting behind me. Inside, the air smelled like burning wires and plastic. I covered my mouth and looked around. The donation table, the one with the hidden camera, was overturned. The box was gone. So was he. I stumbled back outside, coughing. The parking lot was empty where his car had been. He'd planned this. He knew everything. The note, the threat, the camera, it had all been part of his game. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You want truth? Come home. Bring no one. I stared at it, my reflection trembling in the screen. He was waiting for me. At the same house where it all began. And I knew if I went there, only one of us was walking out alive. The drive back home felt like crossing into a nightmare. The rain hadn't stopped, it came down in long, heavy sheets that blurred the road, turning every headlight into a ghostly streak. The windshield wipers thumped like a heartbeat, too slow for the panic racing in my chest. Every few miles, I thought about turning around. Calling my dad. Calling the police. But I didn't. Because some truths, some monsters, don't die until you face them yourself. And I wasn't running anymore. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. Every window was black, except one, the living room. A faint light flickered inside, like a candle fighting the dark. I stepped out, clutching the wrench-shaped fear in my stomach. The air was cold, biting. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled like an omen. I pushed open the front door. It creaked slowly, loud enough to make my heart skip. The smell hit first, smoke and something metallic, like blood. Grandpa? I called softly. No answer. The flickering light came from the TV. The screen showed static, white noise hissing into the empty room. On the coffee table sat a glass of whiskey. Half full. And beside it, a photograph. It was old. Faded. My mom. My dad. My grandfather. All standing together. Smiling. But behind the smiles, something about it felt wrong. My dad's hand wasn't resting on my mom's shoulder, it was gripping it. And Grandpa's smile didn't reach his eyes. Underneath the photo, written in black marker, were 3 words. This is where it started. My stomach twisted. I stepped deeper into the house. Grandpa? I said again, louder. This time, his voice came from the kitchen. I knew you'd come back, Peach. The light above flickered to life. He stood there, calm, composed, as if he'd just been waiting for coffee to brew. No wrench this time. Just his old pocket knife sitting beside him on the counter. You've been busy, he said quietly. Running to the police, digging up ghosts, talking to your father. My throat tightened. How do you know about that? He smiled faintly. I know everything that happens under this roof. You think you're the first to go sneaking around with cameras and secrets? Your mother tried the same thing once. My blood went cold. What do you mean? He tilted his head. The reflection you saw in that video, that was her. I didn't make her film it. She did it because she wanted to know how far I'd go. He stepped closer, his voice soft as silk. And when she found out, she stayed. You ever wonder why she never called the cops? Because she realized I wasn't the villain, Sophie. I was the one holding this family together while the men around us fell apart. I shook my head, backing away. You hurt people, Grandpa. You destroyed Dad. You lied to Mom. You used Jenna. She used me, he snapped, slamming his hand on the counter. The sudden rage in his eyes made me stumble back. She saw weakness. Thought she could blackmail an old man who still had a little money left. I taught her what happens to people who think kindness is something they can buy. My voice trembled. What did you do to her? He stared at me for a long moment, then smiled. She won't be bothering you anymore. The words sank in like knives. I could barely breathe. Where is she? He shrugged. Gone. Like your father. Like anyone who tries to tear this family apart. Tears blurred my vision. You're sick. He stepped forward, slow and steady, his shadow stretching across the floor toward me. No, Peach. I'm a protector. I've always been. I reached behind me, my hand brushing against the lamp on the side table. You're a liar. His smile faltered. You don't mean that. I do, I whispered, gripping the lamp base tighter. And I'm done letting you control me. He raised a finger, shaking his head. If you walk away now, you'll regret it. You'll never know what really happened to your father. I already do, I said. You destroyed him. He took another step. No, Sophie. Your mother did. My breath caught. What? He chuckled darkly. She was the one who called me that night. She begged me to stop him. Said he'd hit her. I came to protect her. He attacked me first. I didn't want to hurt him. But she made me finish it. I froze, the lamp still in my hand. She told me it was the only way to keep you safe, he continued, eyes glinting with some twisted pride. So I did. For you. For this family. I stared at him, every memory collapsing into confusion. My mother's silence. Her guilt. The reflection in the video. Was it true? Or just another lie from the mouth of a man who built his world out of them? My hand shook. You killed him. He nodded slowly. I saved you. The last thing I remember was the sound of my own voice breaking. No, you don't get to call that love. Then I swung the lamp. It crashed against his temple. The bulb exploded in a flash of light. He collapsed instantly, hitting the kitchen floor with a heavy, final thud. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The only sound was the static from the TV, still hissing in the background. Then, faintly, a voice came from the hallway. Sophie? I turned sharply, heart stopping. Mom stood there. Pale. Trembling. Her eyes red like she hadn't slept in days. Mom, I whispered. You knew. She didn't answer. She just stared at Grandpa's body, tears spilling silently. Finally, she said, I called him that night. But I never told him to kill your father. He lied to both of us, Sophie. Just like he lied to Jenna. To everyone. She stepped closer, voice breaking. I wanted to tell you. But I was afraid he'd do to you what he did to your dad. I looked down at the body on the floor. The man I'd once trusted more than anyone. The man who'd called me Peach. And I realized the only person he'd ever truly protected was himself. The police came after Mom called. They ruled it self-defense. But that night never really ended for me. The next morning, I sat on the porch steps as the sun rose. The world looked the same, but I didn't. Dad's voice echoed in my mind. People like your grandpa build cages out of love. He'd been right. And now, the cage was finally broken. 3 weeks later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in neat handwriting. Inside was a USB drive identical to Jenna's. I plugged it in. There was one file. Truth.mov. I pressed play. The screen flickered. A new video began. It was the same living room I was sitting in now. Same couch. Same TV. Only this time, Grandpa wasn't in it. I was. Asleep. And someone unseen whispered behind the camera. You may have killed the monster, Sophie. But you'll never kill what he left inside you. Then the video cut to black. Do you think Sophie should find out who sent that final video, or leave the past buried for good? Tell me in the comments. And if this story shocked you, like, share, and subscribe to True Revenge Stories, because some secrets never stay dead.